And Denise?
Hi, I'm Denise Lasky. I've been in the creative world for probably 25 years. I went out on my own about 10 years ago, and it's been great. And I found this course on LinkedIn, and I wanted to learn more about AI because that's where the world is going. So it's been great. It's been a lot of fun, and happy to be here.
Awesome. Hey, we're live here on LinkedIn. So good. Finally, that's happening.
I think we missed Martin.
Well, Martin, let's start you back over. Sorry, sir. And I saw Denise pop through. So, Martin, you'll start us off again, and we'll just do a quick intro again. Sorry, guys.
Hi, everyone. My name is Martin McCusker. I'm a designer. I've been in the creative industry for about 20 years. Currently a creative director working in the tech industry. I've been using AI for almost since the start when Midjourney came out, and I'm an enthusiast and absolutely love the possibilities.
Awesome. Denise, go ahead and do it again just in case we didn't get the whole thing.
Okay. I'm Denise Lasky. I'm in Pennsylvania. I've been in the creative industry for 25 years, worked at pharma agencies for many, many years. And then about 10 years ago, I went off on my own, started freelancing. And I found Brian's course on LinkedIn through the community, and definitely want to learn more about AI. And so far, it's been great. Been figuring out how to integrate it into my daily workflow, and I love it. It's great. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Johnny?
Hey, you guys hear me okay?
Hear you good.
All right. Well, I started my creative process in architecture and AutoCAD and programs like that, and quickly moved into marketing and sales. Very, very heavy on the sales. And then I kind of considered marketing the master's degree within sales, and that's what got me deep, heavy into design. As far as artificial intelligence, I've been messing with it for several years in mental health apps of all things. So there'll be like there was Woebot, a couple of others where it's a buddy that talks to you. Obviously, it's just a bot that's asking you questions, but making you feel good throughout the day. So I've been messing with AI in that capacity, and this just opens up the world now.
Awesome. All right, Andre.
Hi, Andre Hoffmann from Zurich, Switzerland. I'm in the field of marketing, branding, and design since almost 30 years. And AI is something that is really addictive to me. And I also found Brian's course on LinkedIn, and I was interested and wanted to find out what is possible. And here we are.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys again first for kind of entrusting yourselves to this beta program as I launched out. I definitely have to call you trailblazers in this space because, dude, this is a new thing altogether. You know, first it's AI, then it's investing time and energy into learning in a new and a fresh way. And but I'd love to kind of walk through some things. So the first is, you know, based off of where you started from. I mean, this was hey, I'm interested in that thing, but what was your initial expectation of the AI Lab Level 1, and how did reality compare to those initial expectations?
I think, well, I started using Midjourney over a year ago, almost 2 years ago, when it first came out, and I was just completely addicted. But I was using it in a very whimsical way. I was just pumping out image after image, and there was no real control or no real process to what it was I was doing. There was a lot of luck or happy accidents. I think what this course has done has allowed me to put in place a very concrete structure that allows me to run through the process and actually integrate this through my current design process to achieve better results quicker with more context. And that's something that I think is extremely valuable and something I've taken a lot from. So I
Awesome.
currently use AI across all of my work, every single project, whether it's from strategy and planning right through to creative and application.
So, Martin, just kind of talking back to our first project where we were working on the watch, you had the most initial prolific designs of anybody, I think, on just that initial concepting. So, have you refined your process of creating since that first project?
I have. I think project one, I ended up probably with in excess of 600 or 700 watches. For the last project that we've just completed, module 2, I was much more restrained, much more controlled with what I was asking for. So there was a lot more focus in what it was that I was doing. So although I have a vast array of images, they're spanning different areas, and I'm started to not only rely on a single image, but actually the ability to manipulate and build images from one thing. So the generative fill and different aspects like that have allowed me to really then start to build the vision that I want, without actually spending hours just needlessly churning out images through AI. So
Awesome. What about the rest of you guys? How has it affected your design process, and not just the class necessarily, but how we've approached what we're doing in the space? Has it modified your flow, your creative workflow?
For me, it has made me think a lot about storytelling. So rather than just rocking out a bunch of images and then building a story around that, I've liked that the classes pushed us more towards, to me at least, making a story, making a vision, and then using these tools to literally almost bend reality. Like when I'm using Midjourney and ChatGPT, you almost feel like a god. You're just making something from nothing. It's godlike. It's great. So you have a story in your head, you have something you want to show, and poof, in a matter of seconds. And if you know what you're doing and you're showing restraint, like Martin says, and you're using the tools correctly, like you taught us, Brian, then again, it's I'm creating the book of Genesis. I just poof, I'm like a god.
Awesome.
I have a design studio in my hands. It's amazing.
Yes, for sure. Andre, Denise, any thoughts?
Yeah, Dennis,
No,
go.
go ahead, Andre. Go ahead. Go ahead.
For me, I was in the beginning. I was only using Midjourney, and I wanted to dive a little deeper in Midjourney and find out what is possible. But it turned out that we use different tools in the whole process during the course, and for me, this is one of the learnings that we can use ChatGPT or other tools to create the project, and that was basically the main learning for me to create the whole project with different tools. Yeah.
Awesome. Denise?
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to say that the addition of using ChatGPT is like just a game changer. I mean, I knew about ChatGPT. I had like messed around with it a little bit, but integrating it in the way that we have throughout this course, like using it to like brainstorm and, like execute marketing personas, like branding personas. It's really very useful. And I mean, like you had said at one point, you didn't know what to make for dinner, and you put your ingredients, took a picture of your ingredients, and bam, you have dinner. So it can be used for just about anything. So I think it's pretty cool.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Okay, so how has the integration of generative AI then influenced your approach to problem solving in branding and marketing and your creative fields as a whole? Like, has it had a noticeable impact on how you guys are doing things since kind of going through this stuff so far?
I think Johnny touched on something a second ago. It's a great soundbite, actually. What all of these different tools give you is essentially you've got a design studio in your hands. As a designer, I mean, I've always been restricted by either not having 3D competencies or specialisms within those areas. So what this has allowed me to do is really to visualize and to achieve the results that I want without that wider selection of people around me. So it has really empowered all of my projects, from advertising, packaging, branding, everything. And that's just from the creative side. The integration of ChatGPT from a research, from a planning, and from a strategic point of view is incredible. That's changed the game completely.
Awesome.
So it's been an extremely fun learning curve, and I think actually what Andre was saying, using all of these tools in conjunction, bringing them all together, like the text to voice or text to video, things along those lines. It's really opened up doors that before I wouldn't have been able to achieve as a standalone designer.
Yeah.
You know, Martin mentioned we're going back and forth on this, I guess, the design studio thing. And I remember it wasn't that long ago where me and my friends in architecture school, we would be sleeping in the design studio, and Photoshop was blowing our minds. Now, one of the biggest things I see within generative AI is, well, I'm afraid for architects because it is so great at creating any sense of sort of architecture. And I was here at UF in Florida and really focusing, because they push you that direction, into modern architecture, sustainable architecture, thinking really about tectonic and stereotonic shapes. And now with ChatGPT and Midjourney, you could, something as simple as I need a sustainable green home from the future, and poof, just like that. Better than anything we could have made. Hours in the studio making models, then drawings, then models and drawings. And again, it's what would take me and a whole design studio of my friends and professors, what would take us a semester, I could do in a day. Less drawings, models, three-dimensional models you can walk through, kind of like SketchUp and such. You can do that in a handful of hours.
Yeah. So all of you guys, as we've kind of spent almost 3 months together, you know, in this space, I've had aha moments from you guys where you'd say, okay, there was this really cool thing that I figured out this time. So a lot of the things that happen in the discovery is literally as you're investing in a project that you kind of have these aha moments. What was something that was kind of an aha moment around generative AI for yourself that happened in a project? Maybe what was the project portion that you were doing where you went, okay, this is brand new, I've never considered this before, but it had a significant impact on your thinking around generative AI and how it can work for what you do? Always ask tough questions.
No. I don't want to steal the stage. My biggest aha moment, I think, was the ease with which you can speak with ChatGPT and how quickly it's changing. The other day, just for no reason, I opened it up on the phone, and now you can, from 1 minute to another, now you can actually just talk to it. Hit a button and talk to it, and it'll talk back. And I'm asking it, I'm just bending its mind to my will to see. I'm asking it about video games. What should I play right now? Well, what do you like? Well, I like this. And I'm not giving examples. I'm telling it about games. And then it'll recommend stuff. Then I'll ask, well, give me the Metacritic score, the IGN score. And it's it's blowing my mind now being able to talk to something that is a big aha moment for me was, well, that, but 3 years ago, one day, just bored, I made a bot on my fiance's computer. So, and she didn't know it was there. So she turned on her computer, it hit a button, poof, here comes a dialogue screen that wants to be her boyfriend and asks her what her plans are with me that night and is trying to convince her to dump me. And that was just an if this then that protocol. And this was like 2 3 years ago, and I can't believe how far we've come with being able to interact with this and then use that interaction to guide our design and whatever it may be, mid journey. Well, yeah, it's amazing. My big aha moment was this thing is almost real compared to what I made 2 years ago.
Right. Any of the other guys?
Well, my biggest aha moment is to see how AI speeds up the process and how it changes or leverages creativity in general and to work with these tools. Yeah.
Awesome.
I think for me, Brian, it's really about the integration of all of these different tools within your process, right? So none of these things can replace the creative mind or what it is that we've done for a living for most of our lives, right? So, but the integration, and like Andrea says, it speeds up the process entirely. So if you start off in the correct way with a little bit of process and structure, and you feed that through ChatGPT, for example, before you then move forward into a visual round or anything like that, there you can do all of your strategy planning. You can set the framework for the project. You can have great understanding. You can do all of your research in there. Both projects that we've worked on so far have been based in the 1800s. So we've been able to glean information about every aspect of life relating to the items that we've designed. These are things that currently would have been painstaking to find. We would have had to troll through dozens, if not more, websites in order to find these sort of things on Google. So having all of this built into one place, giving us that ability to relay information back and forth with an intelligence that understands what the problem is and what we're trying to achieve before we then move forward into the creative round, I think is priceless. Like I said, it's really, I think a lot of people are afraid that AI is going to take over the creative jobs. I don't see that. It's going to amplify things. It's like moving from the horse to the motor car.
I agree.
It's a stepping stone in technology, and I think that's the aha moment. It's breathtaking what you're able to achieve if you understand what the capabilities are, and we're still at the very start of this process.
I agree. I think it's almost infantile where we are versus where it's going to be even 6 months or a year from now. The rapidity with which we've reached this point, you think about it, ChatGPT just celebrated 1 year, just a few weeks ago. So you think of where it's come from, and we're already in version 4 of ChatGPT. They're looking at releasing, I think, something called Q later on. And then all these platforms and what's happening with it and how it's going to impact. So I think this is actually a really good segue, and feel free to go back to any of these questions as we go forward. But as we're moving into this space, and you guys are definitely integrating generative AI as a whole into all of your creative aspects as we're doing these projects. But what do you think are some of the key skills that you've developed as a creative, or that creatives need to develop in order to best implement some of the stuff that's happening in generative AI?
Well, I think number one, creatives are going to have to not defend themselves, but almost we're defending the industry or just the idea of AI. Too many people have been scared and have voiced how scared they are. And I like to say, just because you have a hammer doesn't mean you can build a house. So if you got a hammer, it's not going to make it to where you could build an entire house. This generative AI is just a tool. You have to know how to swing that hammer plus a lot of other stuff to be able to build a home. And
Yeah.
the what I think is growing, and Denise touched on it, the persona thing. I have made 1,000 personas, everything from attorneys to expert watchmakers and such. I even made, and I'll just tell it. I'll tell Chat GPT, you are a 25-year-old girl who sells blah 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 on Etsy, notebooks on Etsy. Design me a notebook. What would make a good selling notebook on Etsy? I take that into Midjourney, and it makes something just mind-bogglingly beautiful. Then I take that into Photoshop, and I organize it to be a notebook. And I can even tell Midjourney, I want this many boxes, a 2-page spread, this many boxes, and let's make this box your goals for the day, and this box here. And as long as you're deliberate the way that Brian has taught us, and you know how to speak the language to these machines, you can bend them to your will.
Yeah.
So I like that. It's moving incredibly fast. And what I'm looking forward to is 3D.
Agreed. It's there. It's slowly coming. We'll be touching on that a little later on in the next segment, I think. But Denise, your thoughts as a creative professional on your side of things. What do you think some of the key tools that you bring to the AI space that opens up that door for being able to amplify even what you're able to do with Midjourney and ChatGPT?
Such challenging questions. I think, well, for me, I think everybody else, I don't know if this is really going to answer your question, but this is how I'm going to say it. I think the others here maybe had a little bit more experience with Midjourney than me, than I did when we started. And so, I mean, I had dabbled in it. And for me, my biggest challenge, to Martin's point, like for the watch project, I had so many options and I was just all over the place and I couldn't focus myself. And when I did the soap project, I was much more streamlined. Like I learned a lot about like, okay, here's where you have to make X, Y, and Z decisions. So I think walking through this process will help me be more streamlined when the time comes for me to use something like this in my everyday career. Because as a freelancer, I mean, I don't get a whole lot of opportunities for like concepts. I mean, I get some, but I mean, I can see where this is going to come in really handy if I do have to concept for a job, because it's like having a partner that you can like riff ideas with. So I'm not answering your question at all, but it has helped me already with things like logo design. Like I tell ChatGPT about my client and give it a little background and say like, what do you think something like this would look like? And it makes suggestions and it'll, give me shapes and make suggestions on colors. And then I can ask it, well, what would some good fonts be? And I mean, that's helped with our projects as well. So I think everything you're teaching us and the process is going to help a lot down the road, especially as the rest of the industry kind of moves into generative AI, because I think there are some companies that are starting to get into it, but there's others that are a little bit more hesitant because the laws aren't established yet and all that. But I do think down the road it'll be beneficial. It hasn't, outside of my everyday workflow, it hasn't really shown its full potential in my work, if that makes any sense.
Oh, for sure. So this is actually a good question that kind of hinges off what you just said. The challenges faced while working with generative AI and then how you overcame those challenges. I mean, you just kind of pointed out your first one. We've got a proliferation of things.
Yeah.
How do we narrow that down? Like, both Martin and Johnny, they talked about creating this excessive amount of stuff. Martin with like 600 watches, I think, the first go around. So how is it you learn this process as a creative? How do we then focus ourselves into projects moving forward? Because Martin, you actually said you were able to kind of, the next project, you're able to get faster to the result. So what are the things that you use to overcome that initial hurdle of actually having too much to work with?
Well, I think that this actually was, rather than relying on AI to do the job for me, I fell back onto my roots as a creative, the processes that I had already inherently learned over my career. And once I started to sort of take a step back from AI, utilize it as a tool for the specific functions, the specific needs for the output, but integrating that into my process, not me integrating into AI. I think that there was a sort of reversal of the sort of power structure there. So by utilizing everything that I've learned over my career and then applying that thinking back into the AI, that's what then allowed me to fine tune and hone in on exactly what I wanted from a much earlier point, rather than having a swarm of hundreds, if not thousands, of images and then having to sort of try and get through all of those, because that becomes a very mentally taxing thing to do, and it can actually be a massive distraction as well, because you just get stuck in this loop of generating and generating and generating. So something I've also realized is that there's that point when you step back. Once you have generated things, you may never get something absolutely perfect, and that's okay, because the skills that we have accumulated over our career then come into full power. And that's when we start to build out from the elements that we want within things, or start to combine or composite things in such a way that it actually gives us that final result that we really need. So much more fine-tuning, much more reliance back on my personal skill set, and then amplifying those skill sets through the AI.
You've touched on the very thing I was hoping somebody was going to say, so thank you. Because this is the key, I think. Yeah, it's like the human element is crucial, and the knowledge that we bring as creative professionals is what makes this possible. If you don't have that creative direction, that knowledge as the anchoring point, then you're just going to create a bunch of images with no clarity. I think the generative AI is most useful in is when we are the creative director to the platforms and the tools, so that we're kind of directing it to get the result that we're after, because it goes back to what Johnny said at the very beginning. We're telling a story. We want to make sure that what we're communicating is in line with the brand that we've established, with the audience we're trying to reach, the message we're trying to communicate. It goes back to my art instructor back in college, who said, anything in a painting that is not furthering or continuing that story, it's actually detracting. So part of this creative process is removing the stuff that's a distraction and focusing on what the results are that we're trying to get. So Andre, I've seen a lot of head shaking from you on this one. Any thoughts to add to what I'm kind of talking about and what Martin was bringing up?
Nothing to add. I absolutely agree. What can I say? It's absolutely true. It's the
Awesome.
human factor. It's the creative direction from us that we have to put in, and that's it. Yeah, that's and for I think for this it's also very important to have some base knowledge. Of course, we can ask ChatGPT and ask everything, but also we also need to have some basic knowledge, so we can combine this and create superpower.
Agreed. Agreed.
It's like using your, like Martin said, using your skill set, because I mean, you can get lost in this pretty easily, right? And it's a lot of it is having that knowledge and that expertise to know when to be like, okay, this is what I need to move forward and work with. Like, these are the examples, these are the things, knowing when to stop. It's almost like knowing when to stop adding stuff to your design. Like, you just, it's just a skill that you learn and you develop over time. So helpful.
Yeah, I think, because we can get it so quickly, it's easy to get distracted with the proliferation of choices. And then if I fine tune this prompt, maybe it'll do this thing that I'm after. And this is one of the things I tried to press with you guys in the clock and the smartwatch project, was you can reach only a certain point with the generative AI. Like Midjourney wouldn't do the open face watch that you were trying for, Denise. And so trying other platforms, and then also even then it's not finished. A lot of times we have to go back in and add our shadows or clean things up. And that first project, we had to create a 3D mock-up and then turn it into what looked like an etching. So it's like we've got to learn how to use all these other integrated tools in the whole process. And I think that's the key takeaway for this is, just because it's cool and you can do this thing, the focus is not about how cool of a thing you can create. It's really about how does it fit into the objective you're trying to reach with the project you're creating. So how do you envision applying what you've used so far kind of in future projects and career growth? Do you guys see ways that this is definitely going to have positive impact on what you're doing? And then are there other areas in that space that you're kind of excited about jumping into? I think I've heard already about 3D. That's going to be fun, Johnny. But what are some things that you guys see from what we've kind of jumped in so far, how it's going to impact you going forward?
Something Denise said earlier, that she thinks the rest of us had some background in Midjourney. I had zero. I went from zero to hero with this course. And even ChatGPT, I knew that kids in my fiance's school system used it to write essays for them. So I went from zero to hero with this course. And you mentioned that you asked about where we can vision using this in the future. My mind immediately goes to something as antiquated and silly as email marketing, or now it's become Instagram. People are buying stuff off the Instagram. They just scroll, see a cool product, and boom. And I think about those marketing aspects where before you used to have to make a really engaging email with a call to action. Now do it like that. So,
right. Others? You guys are thinking.
Could you repeat the question?
No, I'm like, I forgot the question.
Yeah.
That's okay. So how do you envision applying some insights and skills learned in this course moving into your future and career growth?
I've already fully integrated, I think. I'm already part cyborg at this point. I start my process the normal way. Once I have a firm idea, once I have the brief ironed out and everything else, I then go directly to my AI tools in order to expand upon that to create the learnings that I need to move forward. I've used it now for everything from apparel design, packaging design, product design. I've used it for digital platforms for inspiration, not actually generating websites or anything along those lines. I've literally used it in every aspect of creativity so far, and things that I would have been heavily restricted on, from photography to 3D aspects. Not true 3D, but visual 3D. And I think one of the things I'm massively looking forward to in the coming months or weeks or minutes would be video. So a much greater understanding of how to use it in video. And I know that you've got a course, Brian, which I might sign up for as well. But I'm kind of that's something then that will, I feel like that will completely set me free almost within the world. Whereas before I was very heavily reliant on other people. It internalizes all of the things that I want to do and gives me the control over every aspect of the project. So that's what I'm most excited about.
Awesome.
You know, I'm almost afraid to take the if I feel like a god right now, finishing the first step of this, well, I'm doing the 4 parts, but if I feel like a magician, like a god right now, what am I going to feel like when I'm finishing level 4 or video,
Right.
like Martin just said, or 3D comes out and it could be as easy as we never have to touch Cinema 4D ever again. And just say, create me a character that's blah, 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 and make the character inside of Unity or Unreal Engine and create a level that's blah, blah, blah. And now you can make a AAA level video game that's here in a year. We're going to be able to do that. That's insane.
For sure. Confident of that. I mean, you can already use ChatGPT to write code. I've seen some simple, gaming's done with ChatGPT integration. So yeah, the possibilities we're just on the cusp of so many things that's getting ready to happen. One last question, and then we're going to jump into actually looking at some of the project stuff you guys have done. So with the way we've ran this course, this was the beta. You guys got to be the guinea pigs for my brain process of how to teach this thing. So what aspects of the course structure, the pacing, the module content, even the direction of running it through, the history of advertising and putting us back in the 1800s to start the whole thing, what's your takeaway? Was that a good process? Did you like it? What are things that you like to see more of or less of or whatever? What's your thoughts on that?
I like the way that you structured it, and I like the fact that it's rooted in history and art history, because I think something you said maybe last week when we were talking, it's an interesting technique to teach people because they almost forget that they're learning because they kind of get lost in like the research part of it and everything else. So I thought that was really cool. Plus I'm learning some stuff about history along the way. So, so it's interesting when you get lost in it, you don't really realize the skill that you're learning. Because I think you had mentioned like some people just can't get out of their head when they're trying to learn something new. And for me, one of the reasons why I took this course is because if you're looking at it as a whole, it can be very intimidating. And it's almost like you need someone to assign that structure, assign those projects so that you can learn in a structured way. Otherwise, I would probably just be so overwhelmed that I wouldn't know what to do.
Sure.
So I appreciate that part of it. But as far as like workload and everything else, for me, it's been fine. I think you have one heck of a challenge on your hands to moving forward to like keep pivoting and adapting to like how quickly everything is changing. So I'm really interested to see where we are after the 4 levels, because I think we're gonna look back and be like, wow, like things have changed so much. So good luck to you, Brian.
Well, thank you. This is the fun thing is I'm trying to make it as adaptable as possible. So from a high level view, the projects will stay pretty much the same. It's the way we'll do them. Sort of like when I was first envisioning this thing back in October, DALL-E had not been released in collaboration with ChatGPT yet. So as we kind of jumped into that initial project, here comes DALL-E is now an integrated piece, and then you can suddenly prompt inside of ChatGPT to get a result. And so we were getting much better results for some of those fine-tuned pieces of our watch face. And so this is kind of the fun thing is how would we approach it? We'll just integrate those new tools. So that's good. Any others from that same process of the course structure feedback?
I liked one, Brian, I don't envy you at all because I feel like you're going to have to redo the course, each course every couple of months. So I don't envy you at all. I told you my fiance is an educator. You can make something one time and then, use it for class after class, even year after year. I don't envy you because you're going to have to redo this all the time because of all the new technology that's coming out. I really do like the pace. I really loved the communication that you gave us on Discord. Whether it was one-on-one communication, you and I had a lot of that, or the group communication and just asking questions. Andre sharing awesome stuff he found. Hey guys, check out this tool. I liked that level of, we were kind of like a design studio. We really were. And you taking us out of our comfort zone with like the watch thing. What do I know about the 1830s? And I'm asking myself, in the 1830s, did they still believe in the four humors, the bile from the kidneys and stuff like that? And I had to look it up. And yup, in the 1830s, they believed in the humors. So I got to incorporate that. But you had to take us out of our comfort zone to learn something about the 1830s.
Right. Awesome.
I think the structure was great, Brian. I think the projects are really good. I find it very interesting that we're obviously using cutting edge technology, but going back in time to utilize it. And I thought that was a really interesting sort of way of utilizing the platforms. From a structure point of view, I think it was great. And there was all of the advice, learning, and steer from you and the group, which helped us to achieve really nice results. I think everybody actually, their work stood out and was quite exceptional. So I think it's been a great little process.
Awesome. Andre, that leaves you, sir.
Yeah. I also like the structure, and the pace was okay for me and everything. The most interesting part was the in module 1 was the history, or go back in time to find out how advertising functioned in during that period, and that was very interesting. And yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah. The historic basis was really quite cool, actually. Obviously, Brian, you're a bit of a historian as well as a teacher, so having that sort of those insights and putting yourself back in that sort of learning curve from a historical context, I think was extremely genius, a way of actually then utilizing AI. So it came together really nice.
It's kind of funny because I know the initial response that I've gotten from a few people, both in module 1 and or in beta 1 and beta 2, was, what the heck? Why are you taking us back to the 1800s to build a watch, and advertising for them? Because that's not practical to today. But did you guys actually find the process and how we did this actually becoming very practical to your creative aspects of what you're doing right now? Yeah, I see Andre saying yes. So
absolutely.
I think, look, as creative professionals, right, we all understand how to take a brief and then roll through that, right? Just because we go back in time doesn't change the fact that we're working on a creative brief. We're just changing the parameters of that. So I think it was great because we all could have designed some super fabulous, robotic, futuristic sort of concepts, but what we actually did was go back and give them meaning. We went back and looked at materials. We looked at characteristics. We looked at demographics. We looked at all of these different things that then formed that project. So from a creative standpoint, it's still a creative brief. The fact that we went back in time for it, I think, was actually a very interesting twist because it gives you a completely different outlook.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So what I'm going to do? Go ahead, Andre.
Yeah. Just one thought. My experience was when we got the briefing, I studied the briefing much more intense. I dived into the brief, and I read everything very exactly to understand what we really have to do. Maybe this is an advantage if we have a regular briefing today. A lot of a lot of things are already clear, and we think we understand everything. And that way we have to rethink and ask questions about a lot of things that are not clear for us. And that way it's a different approach, and I think it's a deeper understanding and a learning to do the creative process. And that was, for me, that was great to experience.
Awesome. Okay, we've got 13 minutes left on this actual block of time. I don't want to take any of you guys' day, because I know everybody's here got other things to do. And I want to try to share a few different project pieces, and just to kind of introduce everybody to what we've actually done in this whole effort here. So let's see. Do share screen. Okay, so we'll start with this one. Andre, I believe this was your project.
That's me. Exactly.
Tell us briefly about what your kind of key thought was, and what got you to this place on the project.
I really don't know where to start.
I know.
But, no, the whole process was very interesting. Starting with how to find out what materials were used during that time, and what target group we are talking to, or am I talking to with this smartwatch, and to find out how to put everything together, and how this smartwatch could look like, and to finally create it in Midjourney, and create this masterpiece. It was very interesting, and that was just the first part, and the second part of the project was to adapt this in a handbill that was used during that time period, and to create that design with appropriate fonts and design elements and everything, and that was the project. Yeah,
this was fantastic. So I'll be sharing out you guys' project pieces. We'll put it together in a presentation so everybody can kind of see the entire process that everybody took. Let's see. I think pull this one over.
Oh, there we go.
And make it nice and big. All right, Martin.
So I think it's worth mentioning that these are sort of watches that have been created for explorers with lots of special features and things along those lines. So for this, it wasn't as simple as just punching in, give me a watch from 1830s with this, that, and the other. We looked at specific materials. We looked at color, composition, adding special features and functionalities into these things, the backstory of where these materials may have come from, inventor details, things along those lines. And then even when we go to the playbill, the paper, the pulp, the grain, all of these things were put in, or all of these things were fed from ChatGPT, which we then created images for. So we're using fonts from the period. We're using language from the period. Obviously, the watch designs are one thing, but actually the entire process of how we get to this end result. So all of the details that you see on this, apart from the typography itself, have been manipulated or created within AI. Right? from the paper, the backgrounds, the screw fixings that were used, the materials, the different methods for construction of the watch, and different things like that. All of this played a part in the creation of this. I went on a slightly different direction than everybody else and sort of tried to do something with a slightly different sort of visual aesthetic. I didn't want that sort of open sort of pocket watch aspect, so I went with almost like a dive master type watch because it was for explorers. It was incredibly fun. The watch itself is actually a composite of 3 different watches, which is worth mentioning as well. So the internal face, the hands, these are all from different watches. So compiled together, they actually form something really quite unique and beautiful, I think.
Yeah, love what you came up with. Let's see if I can get. Denise, I'm trying to pull yours up here.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. There we go. All right, so tell us about yours.
Okay. So I knew I wanted to do like a high-end pocket watch for the, aristocratic woman, fashion forward. Had quite a bit of conversation with ChatGPT, trying to figure out the features, and settled on, this had there's a tea time alarm. There's a perfume dispenser. It has a mirrored inside top. I can't think of the word. So it's like a cosmetic compact type of thing.
Yeah.
And I really struggled, as you know, with trying to get Midjourney to give me what I wanted. I mean, hundreds of tries, but I couldn't get it to open. And then I had that aha moment, like, oh, well, I'm not, restricted to just Midjourney. And so I went over to DALL-E, and within like 2 prompts, it started doing exactly what I wanted it to do.
Yeah.
So played with that for a while. And then I thought doing the handbill was a lot of fun. I'm a designer by nature, and just investigating the right fonts and developing all those little embellishments with the use of Midjourney it was fun. I really enjoyed this project.
It was fantastic. And this is what everybody's not fully able to see here is this is a PDF document. That's the entire creative process. And so this is something I want to get out to the people to kind of get a look at what's involved and what's accomplished in module 1 of this project. And this is really fascinating how each of you guys took a different approach following the same steps and guidelines. And I think this is what's absolutely beautiful is we have 4 distinct projects here, each with its own personality, each with a different target audience, but still following the same design brief. And I think this is what's kind of really neat, kind of thinking through. All right, so then we've got Johnny.
Yeah. Don't play the whole video. I'll be mad.
Okay. That's great.
So I mentioned earlier, just because you can swing a hammer doesn't mean you could build a house. And Martin has mentioned about the skills we already have and implementing those skills into, implementing AI into those skills. So when starting with this watch, I started with the story first, obviously 1830, like you guided us to, but I wanted to make something that would be useful, but then also poke fun at the idea of the very, Denise mentioned the adventure. So poke fun at the idea. A good example would be Tag Heuer watches and Rolex watches, where they have hilarious names that would hint to you being a dive master or an aviator or being a car racer with names like, Daytona, Sky Master, stuff like that. And these people have never hit a racetrack or gone scuba diving in their life. It's more of a symbol of how cool I am. So I started with 2 personas, and the personas were the actual adventurer and then the aristocrat that wanted to wear an adventurer's watch just to say, I have an adventurer's watch. The price tag on this thing is exactly the price tag of a Rolex day date, which is like $47,000. So that's $47,000 in that time. And so I also drew some inspiration from Ayn Rand, or Anne Rand, however you want to pronounce it. And I'll never say the word steampunk because it's overused and I just hate the word steampunk. But there's a huge series of video games, and that have, I hope someone's a fan of BioShock out there, but they've existed since before actual game systems. This is when we were building computers, and it had that Ayn Rand aesthetic, and where they're in the past but in the future. So think of the book Atlas Shrugged. So I wanted a watch that did something ridiculous. It's got a kerosene canister, so you could be a gentleman and light a lady's cigarette, or you could start a fire. And I mentioned earlier the humors. Well, these new Rolexes are self-winding. So I made this thing self-winding, but how do you explain that in 1830s? So now I have to explain it with pulleys and levers and all this stuff to make an 1830s person understand. And mentioning the humors, this is over the top. This is snake oil salesman time. You could say it does anything. So I said the same way it balances the watch as a self-winding, well, it's also going to balance your four humors as they pass through your veins. So there was a sense of ridiculous, and then a sense of actual adventure. So the adventure, and then the wannabe.
Very,
a lot of fun.
Cool.
A lot of fun.
Awesome. So I'll share the other projects later, because I want to kind of let everybody get a chance to see in depth what you guys have put together, particularly the soap branding and everything that happened there. So we'll do that. But as a wrap up, what's a good takeaway for each of you guys as kind of a recommendations to others in the creative field? And it's not just about this course. It's about generative AI and the application inside of the creative industry. What are your thoughts and kind of a recommendation to the community as a whole? You run across other creatives that you bump shoulders with and things. What would you tell them about generative AI and its impact, how it can benefit them creatively? This will be our wrap up swan song.
I think below my name in the in this post that you put up in LinkedIn, there's an amazing quote by me, but I would say that a lot of people just think this is cool, and yes, it is cool. And I walked into it thinking, yes, it's cool. But if I had to wrap it up in a couple of words, I would say, don't get left behind. Just don't get left behind. You do something like this because you might get left behind.
Right. Right.
I think embrace it as another weapon in your arsenal from a design point of view. It doesn't give you the answers, but it amplifies things that you already do well. So I think, so take it as it is. It's not an overlord that's going to take over your job. It still needs the human behind the keyboard. But as soon as you start to integrate that through your process, I think you become stronger.
All right. Denise?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way I feel echoes what Martin and Johnny said. I would just say don't be afraid of it, and embrace it, because it's really, if you don't, you're probably going to get left behind. But if you know how to use it, which is so important to learn how to use it, if you know how to use it, it's going to do nothing but benefit and help your productivity in a big way. So, yeah.
Agreed. Andre?
My advice is to just do it. Just try new things. I think the the big problem today is we have every day we have hundreds of new tools and updates and new features, and this might be very difficult to get into this whole AI thing. And I think my advice is just try it out and find out, learning by doing, and that makes the whole thing much more easier to start with and to get into it. And yeah, that's my advice.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming on with me today. This is our normal meeting time during the week for Q&A. So it was a nice segue just to kind of do a little quick wrap up of where we're at. But thank you guys also truly for being a part of the beta 1 that just kind of got this whole thing underway. And this was literally being built in real time. So I had a lot of the ideas in place, and then I just started putting out, and you guys have kind of seen firsthand that I'm prolific when I start putting things together. And hopefully those were huge assets as we got underway with this stuff. But I'm excited about what we've got. And I will let you guys depart and then just kind of do a quick wrap up. So thanks again for those who joined us this morning. Hopefully this was insightful, and hopefully there's some cool takeaways that you can have thinking about the role of generative AI for the creative professional. So anyway, thanks so much for joining us. Feel free to put any comments and questions below in the LinkedIn profile and on YouTube, and we'll get back with you guys. So thanks again. Y'all have a wonderful rest of the week.